Welcome, and thank you for registering for the University of Maryland Global Campus October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's exciting to bring you a host of relevant cyber topics and special guest speakers supporting Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So please stay tuned all month, each Wednesday at noon, as we cover topics that are relevant to cybersecurity awareness. My name is Dr. Lois Palin, and I am the Senior Director of the Center for Security Studies here at UMGC. And most of you know UMGC is a center of academic excellence in cyber defense. And as such, our goal is really to promote higher education and research in cyber defense and produce professionals with cyber defense expertise. So held every October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month is a collaborative effort between government, academia, and the industry to raise awareness about the importance of cybersecurity and ensure that all Americans have the resources they need to be safer and more secure online. At UMGC and the Center for Security Studies, we are proud to be champions supporting this essential online safety awareness and educational initiative. There's an evergreen theme of #BeCybersmart. And now more than ever, the theme empowers you individuals and organizations to own their role in protecting their part in cyberspace. Join UMGC leaders and special cybersecurity industry guests each week during the month for an exciting and engaging webinars that include essential topics related to cybersecurity awareness. Whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, professor, graduate, teleworker, we have a webinar that will provide you with the tools you need to be cyber smart. And in today's world, we have posted the registration link in the chat. I'll put that there in a second, but I just wanted you to know that the previous 2 weeks of October, the videos will be posted at that link also. So today, I'm excited to introduce Tricia Ume to you. I saw her speak on ABC News 7 on Your Side and was very impressed with the cybersecurity topics that she was discussing. Tricia Ume is a project manager and security consulting professional, knowledgeable in the development and implementation of a security program that leverages enterprise-wide resources, facilitates information security governance, advises senior leadership on security direction and resource investments, and designs appropriate policies to manage info security risk. She has worked with federal clients applying the NIST methodology, including FISMA compliance. She has extensive knowledge of all stages of the security authorization process and security documentation. I'm going to turn it over to Tricia now. Just as a note, we will have time for questions and answers after the presentation. And if you need closed captioning, you can use the closed captioning Zoom feature. Now over to Tricia.
Thank you, Dr. Palin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tricia Ume, and I'm the co-founder of GAP6 LLC, a small business specializing in cybersecurity, media, and communications consulting. My background is very atypical for someone who's worked in cybersecurity. I do have a bachelor's degree, but it's not in information technology. I basically didn't actually think about cybersecurity at all while I was working. I wouldn't actually have gotten into cybersecurity had I not been laid off 6 years ago. I was working as a business consultant providing professional services to the government. And I don't know if you know anything about government contracting, but you get hired for a contract. And once the contract is over, if your company doesn't have another, position for you to, job for you to do, they let you go. And that's what happened to me 6 years ago. I found myself unemployed, and as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, cybersecurity was a pretty known thing, and a lot of people were looking into it. So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to check it out. And when I was investigating it, I came across different career paths. But the one that piqued my interest the most was security control assessor. Part of the reason it piqued my interest is it didn't seem like it was overly technical. Because I didn't have a technical degree, I didn't want to get myself, become overwhelmed and taking, something that I didn't, feel prepared for. So I did a couple of things then. So I decided to pursue my project management professional degree. certification. So I did that and I got my PMP. I also took Security Plus class, just so I can get, the background and bearings of cybersecurity, especially because through my research and talking to recruiters, they said that Security Plus was, a basic thing that everybody must have who's in the field. So I thought, okay, well, at least I need to learn it. And then I also did a certified authorization professional course, which is specific to security control assessors. And I did get a certification for that. And then I went on to apply for work. And as I was, interviewing, basically letting everyone know that I never had the experience like working in positions in cybersecurity. However, I studied and I knew a lot of things in regards to that profession. And the company I worked for took a chance on me and they hired me. I mean, I did have risk management in my background, so it's not like I'd never done that before. However, it wasn't cybersecurity specific. And so, they took me on and they brought me in. And that's where my cybersecurity journey started. And I've, worked through and I've worked with different agencies and in different roles, documentation. So I've learned a great deal and I continue to learn a great deal. One of the things that I have in the back of my mind to do is to go and get a higher degree, a master's degree in cybersecurity and just expand my knowledge, because that only benefits me and it helps my clients, because it makes me, I learn a lot and I can better help my clients. And also it gives me the leverage, as far as a higher income. So with that said, we are here to talk about career paths in cybersecurity. And so, finding a right career path in cybersecurity isn't always easy. I mean, you can go through a path like mine, or, a lot of people know exactly what they want to do in college. And so they major in it and they go from there and they move on to different, degrees. But majority of the people who are in it are like me, who have not even thought about it or were not in it, but decided that they want to do it. And so one of the things that this webinar is going to discuss are some career paths that are, popular, and some of the recommended training you need to do in order to be successful. So cybersecurity professionals work in every size, company and industry to protect organizations from data breaches and attacks. And the demand for cybersecurity professionals is growing at a rapid rate. Job postings for cybersecurity professionals have grown 3 times faster than openings for IT jobs overall. Before you jump headfirst into the specialized field, you should know what a typical cybersecurity career path entails. This presentation will cover 4 of those security careers and the recommended training, like I mentioned before. So those careers that I'm going to be talking about are Chief Information Security Officer, Penetration Tester, Ethical Hacker, Security Architect, Security Consultant, as well as a final topic for training for cybersecurity management and policy. I'm going to add that at the end. And so moving forward, so if you're going to be starting your cybersecurity career, there's no linear path to a successful career in cybersecurity. Some people enter the security field straight out of college, while others transition from IT role. No matter where you start, all cybersecurity careers begin with general IT experience. You need to understand how technology works before you can learn how to secure and protect it. So entry-level jobs that pave the way for a cybersecurity career include computer software engineer, database administrator, IT technician, network administrator, network engineer, security administrator, systems administrator, web developer, and many, many others. You will also need outside training and education to supplement what you learn on the job. 35% of cybersecurity jobs require an industry certification, and that's compared to 23% of IT jobs overall. And so most management level cybersecurity jobs are highly specialized. And the more you focus on expertise by seeking out specific industry certifications, the more attractive you'll appear to companies looking for those particular skill sets. And also it helps to have a graduate degree as well. So the Chief Information Security Officer, or the CISO, is a senior level position. So if you aspire to lead a security team and spearhead IT initiatives for an enterprise, becoming a CISO is a lucrative and rewarding career path. And the role as Chief Information Security Officer comes with a lot of power and creative freedom. They build security teams, oversee all initiatives that concern an organization's security. And typically the CISO reports to a CIO or a CEO. According to the Glassdoor, the average salary for CISOs are $171,480. You can expect to spend about 7 to 12 years working in IT and security before you qualify as a role as a CISO. At least 5 of those years should be spent managing security operations and teams. So a possible career path for a CISO, and I say possible because there's never, a one way for someone to progress in their career. So this is a possible path. You can earn a bachelor's degree in computer science, information technology, cybersecurity, or related field, or you can have equivalent experience with a relative industry certification. You enter the field as typically a programmer or an analyst. You get promoted to a role as a security analyst, engineer, consultant, or auditor, and you can gain more advanced IT certifications and training. You enter a management position overseeing a security team. You can get an MBA or certifications with an IT security or management focus, and then you get promoted to a CISO role. Some of the day-to-day activities for CISOs. As the head of IT security, your daily activities would include hiring and guiding a team of IT security specialists, creating strategic plans for deploying information security technologies and improving existing programs, supervising the development of corporate security policies and procedures, collaborating with key stakeholders to establish a security risk management program, spearheading IT security investigations and providing recommended courses of action in the event of a breach. And of course, these are not the only things that a CISO does, but these are some of the main things that they do. Some of the training recommended for CISOs would be, so when you're striving positions on this level of management, earning accredited certifications is an absolute must. So taking the initiative to continue education with relevant certifications validates your expertise and dedication to the field of IT security management. And so here are the list. So for intermediate certifications, we're talking about a Certified Information Systems Auditor or CISA. More advanced management focused training would be a Certified Information Security Manager, which is a CISM. And the expert level would be the Certified Information System Security Professional, or the CISP. Moving on to the penetration tester, which is a mid to senior level position. So penetration testers, also known as ethical hackers, look for weaknesses in IT systems, networks, and applications using the same knowledge and tactics as criminal hackers. Penetration testers use a series of tools to simulate real-life cyber attacks, identify weak spots, and help organizations improve their security posture. And the average salary for a penetration tester is about $102,116. So some of the possible penetration tester, ethical hacker career path would be similar to the other, to the CISO. You got to earn a bachelor's degree in computer science, information technology, security related field, or gain equivalent experience relevant to industry certifications. You pursue an entry-level role as a security administrator, system administrator, or network engineer. Then you master specialized ethical hacking skills with training and certifications. You enter a penetration tester ethical hacker role, and then you get promoted to a senior penetration tester role, security consultant or security architect. Some day-to-day activities of a penetration tester would be that you'd be expected to perform penetration tests on networks, web applications, and computer systems. You uncover security holes and pinpoint the methods attackers can use to exploit system weaknesses. You research, document, and discuss findings with management and IT teams. And you design and implement new penetration tools and tests. Some of the training recommendations for penetration testers. Cyber attacks are always evolving, and so your knowledge should be as well. So the following training courses will teach you everything you need to know about modern ethical hacking practices, operating systems, software, communications, and network protocols. And that would be, for the beginner, the CompTIA Security Plus. Intermediate would be Certified Ethical Hacker, CH. More advanced would be CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner, which is a CASP, or an EC Council Certified Security Analyst, which is ECISA. And the expert level would be Certified Information System Security Professional, the CISP. So the security architect is also a senior level. So if you're passionate about problem solving and creating big picture strategies, the security architect career path is for you. A security architect is tasked with designing, building, and implementing network and computer security for an organization. Security architects are responsible for creating complex security structures and ensuring that they function properly. They design security systems to combat malware, hacker intrusions, and distributed denial of service, DDoS attacks. And the average salary for this position is $152,955. Security architects are expected to have 5 to 10 years relevant experience, with 3 or 5 of those years dedicated to security. And a possible career path for this position would be to earn a bachelor's degree in computer science, information technology, cybersecurity, or related field, or gain equivalent experience with relevant industry certifications. You enter through the IT field as security administrator, system admin, or network admin, and then you get promoted to a mid-level role as a security engineer or analyst. And then you enter a security architect role. Some of the day-to-day activities for this role. So as a security architect, you'd be expected to plan research and design durable security architectures for various IT projects, develop requirements for, research and implement the latest security standard systems and best practices, perform vulnerability testing, security assessments and risk analysis, and then develop requirements for network firewalls, routers, and related network devices. And the recommended training would be for a beginner, CompTIA Security Plus, intermediate, Certified Ethical Hacker, advanced EC Council Certified Security Analyst, and the expert, Certified Information Systems Security Professional. So a security consultant is a catch-all cybersecurity expert. They assess cybersecurity risks, problems, and solutions for different organizations and guide them in protecting and securing their physical capital and data. The position might also be referred to as an information security consultant, a computer security consultant, a database security consultant, or network security consultant. Security consultants need to be flexible and savvy. They deal with a wide range of variables when assessing security systems across diverse companies and industries. The salary range for IT consultants is pretty broad and it depends on the experience, but a senior consultant, security consultant earns an average of $92,620. Security consultants are expected to have 3 to 5 years of professional experience. So some of a possible career path for a security consultant would be, like everything else, earn a bachelor's degree in computer science, information technology, cybersecurity, or a related field, or gain equivalent experience with relative industry certifications. You can pursue an entry-level position in general IT or security, then earn a mid-level role as a security administrator, analyst, engineer, or auditor. Sharpen your cybersecurity skills with advanced training and certifications, and then you enter security consultant role. And some of the day-to-day activities as a security consultant, some of your daily tasks may include determining the best way to protect computers, data, networks, and information system from potential attacks, interviewing staff and department heads to uncover security issues, performing vulnerability tests and security assessments, testing security solutions using industry standard analysis methods, and providing technical supervision and guidance to a security team. And having certifications on your resume will help you build credibility as you climb the career ladder. These training courses will expose you to essential skills every security consultant needs, from ethical hacking to encryption technologies and data breach prevention protocols. And so some of the trainings for the security consultant would be CompTIA Security Plus for a beginner, Certified Ethical Hacker and Cybersecurity Analyst for intermediate, EC Council Certified Security Analyst for advanced, and Certified Information System Security Professional for expert. And then I was actually going to be talking about the cybersecurity management and policy. So for the day-to-day tasks for the cybersecurity management policy professional, you establish, implement, and oversee a cybersecurity structure for the organization. You create a security approach that combines technology, governance, and compliance perspectives. You create organizational structures, communications, operational business processes, and the legal framework for cybersecurity policy. You perform risk analysis, concepts, and models to a variety of organizations. You also incorporate cybersecurity into numerous organizations, including human resources, healthcare, and financial services organizations, and you develop complete cybersecurity incident response plans. Some of the suggested training for this would be to acquire a master's degree in cybersecurity management and policy, CompTIA Security Plus, the IC Squared Certified Information Systems Security Professional, CISP, and a PMP, Project Management Professional, and have some background in information technology before pursuing the program. So in conclusion, your cybersecurity career can lead you down endless paths. Whether you're just getting started or a seasoned IT professional, the right training will help you to meet your career goals. Cybersecurity professionals who go all the way to a master's in cybersecurity will find that it's worth the education and effort that you put into it. A good master's program in cybersecurity, such as the one here at UMGC, will give students confidence, build character, and help students with networking within the information technology field. The master's in cybersecurity jobs they'll be able to obtain will provide job opportunities that a bachelor's won't. And cybersecurity master's salary is a great return on investment. And now I will open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Tricia. I see several questions that we have from our participants. Let me just sharing for a minute so that I can make sure I see all of the chat questions. One of the questions that came in is that the entry salaries that the average salaries that you mentioned are nice salaries, but do you have any thoughts about how long it takes after you enter into one of these professions, how long it takes to get to that average salary? I'm sure that the entering salary is not that high. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I can only use myself as an example in regards to, salary. I think, going into a new job, obviously, if it's something you've never done, they'd like to negotiate lower, but, depending on where you're coming from, you're not going to go so far below what you were currently making just to enter the field. So there's a happy medium there. So, I can tell you what these average salaries are. However, it depends on where you're coming from and the skill set that you have. So you can always negotiate higher, even if you don't have any experience, based on the experience you do have. And if you have these certifications, then it's a game changer. That really helps you out. And if you got a master's degree, that even, that helps you out even more. So I was coming from an undergraduate degree and I didn't have a master's degree. So I was basing my, negotiating based on what I was making. And the fact that I did get a couple certifications, the PMP and the CAP. So I had those two to help me out.
I see a couple of questions about internships and what would be your thoughts about how internships play a role within someone getting a job in cybersecurity?
I would say that great to have internships. However, I'm not sure how that works because a lot of the work that we do, we need to go get clearance through the government. So in order to do the work, you got to go have background checks and government clearance. So I'm not sure that many organizations have that set up. Maybe huge companies like SAIC or something like that or CCSI would have that already set up as part of their company, but smaller organizations probably won't do it because, in order for you to even see what's going on, you have to have a clearance and have permissions to access and see that information.
Great. You talk, there's a lot of information about obtaining certifications in the presentation. And we've had a lot of questions about how do you study for these tests and how much time does it take? I know for myself, when I took the CISSP, I have my own studying style. It took quite a few months for me to master all of the information that was required at that time. Do you have any thoughts about, how do you study for those tests and how much time should you allocate to doing that?
I mean, it depends on what you're studying for. So the CISSP, I haven't started studying for that. I have the book. Get a book from Amazon or go to, ISC Squared and order the book through them. And, for me, I think you should gradually, if it's something that you're not familiar with, just gradually just read the book. Dedicate a chapter a week, or if you have more time, a chapter a day, if that's what you want to do, and just read through it. Before you can take courses, you don't have to, but I would say kind of like read the material first so you kind of get an understanding about it. If you don't still get it, take a course if you can afford one or have your company pay for you to take a course, and then practice tests. Like practice tests are the key to all these certifications. The more you practice it, the better you get at it, and then the better you do on the test. So you definitely need to prep for it. You've got it. You don't have to pay to prep for it. You can do it on your own, but you need to put yourself on a schedule. Whatever amount of time you have, figure it out. If it's 5 minutes a day for 2 years, which is a long time, but that's all you have, 5 minutes a day, and just make sure you're studying and you're understanding and retaining the material so that when you start doing the practice tests, then it's, second nature to you, and then you should be fine.
Yeah, I would say that the practice tests are very valuable, especially the ones that provide you not only the correct answer, but why the answer is correct and why the others are incorrect. That was the most valuable type of test prep that I had. I also put a link into the chat about the UMGC free NetLabs program that we have. It's available to students who want to do independent study. It has quite a few labs and exercises that relate to to many of the certifications that we've discussed. So I put the link there. Please feel free to take a look at that and sign up for our free NetLabs program. I keep getting questions about entry-level security jobs, and with people who really are, it's a chicken and an egg. People who may have the degree, may have the certification, but they don't have any experience. We always talk about trying to get an internship, but do you have any other thoughts about how people who have some of the credentials but not the experience?
Just, I would say perseverance, because I got the certification. I didn't have any experience, and I literally applied to so many jobs, and I talked to a lot of recruiters, and everyone I talked to, I'd say, what do I need? What would make my, resume more appealing if I had, and, they'd say take Security Plus, which is why I took the Security Plus class, and, they give me all this advice, but it definitely is, it's a little bit of luck, but a lot of perseverance and just networking and just saying, hey, can you just look at my resume? Do you have a few minutes to talk to me? Can you give me some advice? And, there are some companies, like I know the company I ended up working for, they just literally took a chance on me. And after they took a chance on me, they ended up taking a chance on other people who didn't have experience with that certification, because it worked out well for them, because of, the people that they brought in. So there are companies like that, that will take a chance on you. I think they want to know that you understand the concepts, not necessarily that you've done them. So during the interview, they ask you questions. You don't have to have done this stuff. They just want to know that you understand it and that you're teachable, even though, they may not be teaching you like regular school, but they want to know that they give you an assignment and they say, here, this is how you do it. You can run with it without, feeling stumped or having to come back and have them do the work for you.
I see an age-old question here about the need for math for a successful cybersecurity career. You have any thoughts about that?
I don't know. I like math. I don't know how much. I mean, yeah, technology, science, and there's a lot of math in that, and so I don't know. I think you kind of have to like math, or I'm not really sure. That's a hard one for me to say. I like math, so it's all good for me. But if you're not, I can't say that you must be math inclined in order to do it, but I think your mind has to work a certain way. Like you have to enjoy it to do it. Like this is not a field that you just get into just because of money, let's say. You actually want to, you need to have an interest in what you're doing in order to do this field. And I think,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, sorry.
I would say that I've been successful in the cybersecurity arena, and I did not have to take a lot of advanced math for that. It seems like advanced math was for computer science degrees, but I have to say from a personal experience, I did not have to have a lot of math in my curriculum.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a question about, you talked about professional experience. So when you go into some of these positions, you mentioned that you needed to have 3 to 5 years of professional experience. Do you mean that I need to have 3 to 5 years of cyber experience, or is it an accumulation of things that I have in my background that would count towards that professional experience?
Yeah, I think it's the cumulative experience you've had in your background. So you've been working for X amount of years, not necessarily in the cyber field, but you've had a career in doing something. And a lot of times when people are looking at their resumes and they're kind of going, okay, I've never been in cyber, I haven't done anything in cyber. But if you dig down into your daily duties, I'm sure you can pull out things about risk and things related to cyber that you do in your job that's not quote unquote cyber security, like terminology, like if you're risk management, you analyze things. I mean, a lot of those things are things that you would highlight in your resume to help along the cyber routes, because, you're saying, yeah, I'm new to this. And that's what I did. I had to go through my resume and pull out anything related to risk and cybersecurity that I'd done in the past and just highlight it. And so that was the focus, so that it didn't seem like I was going from, A to Z, with nothing in between, so that helped a lot too.
Great, thank you so much. I see another question. We get a lot of questions over and over again, and there's a lot of debate about it. Someone is asking, do you think having a certificate is more important than a degree in obtaining a job?
I mean, I think a degree is very important. If you can't afford one, then obviously, it's like you can't. But I think it's good to have a degree and a certification. A lot of companies, they want you to be certified because a lot of government agencies want you and need you to be certified. So when you're going out for an RFP, it's saying this person must have a CISP, they must have PMP, in order to have this role. And so companies want to hire people with certifications because that's what the government is asking for when they're putting out the RFPs. And so it's a toss-up. But I have seen, even the company that I worked for, they will take someone with a high school degree with years of experience and certifications. But that doesn't mean that that's what everyone's going to do, So I do think education is important, though. Like I said in my presentation, like I'm going to go out and get a master's when I could fit it in. I've got twins who are like 6 years old, so I don't know when that's going to be, but it's a long-term goal, as is the CISP, which is those things take time. So my long-term plans are those, to do those things.
We have another question about the extreme shortage of cybersecurity professionals. And the question is, what are your thoughts on why there's a shortage and how the industry can fill that gap? And I just wanted to add one thing. We talked about internships, but organizations and universities that are doing apprenticeships also, which are pretty much boot camps that prepare people for the various certifications that you talked about to get. And not only does the apprenticeship prepare the student for the cert, it also has an employer on the back end who is going to guarantee that that person has a position, an entry level position. So I know some things that are happening like that. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I think what you just mentioned is great. If you can, work that out with employers, to kind of have a guarantee that this person's gonna graduate, or, they're gonna come and do an internship and kind of shadow somebody and learn the ropes, and then are guaranteed work after they're done. That would be wonderful. I mean, I think one of the things that I've experienced is, like, there are a lot of jobs out there, but there are very few, there are very few people to fill them. And more so, there are few people who actually know the work that's, it's one thing to be new at a job, and it's just, somebody has to shadow you and somebody has to kind of take the time to show you the ropes a little bit, but with someone more experienced, you can just kind of jump right in. Yeah, companies are different. You kind of have to learn the companies, how the company operates, but you can get right to work and do the job. And I think that's the disparity, why there's so many jobs available, because a lot of companies don't want to hire people that they have to spend time to train, quote unquote. And so with the program where you're doing an apprenticeship, that would be great. I think more universities or higher learning schools should approach companies more and ask them, if they can participate, or even give them the idea. Because I don't think that they're thinking, companies are not thinking about, oh, let me set up an apprenticeship program to get, as a way to bring in qualified candidates, or, candidates that we can train and hire in the future.
Right. We had a session last weekend. We had a panel of professional women who talked about their jobs. And one of the questions that came up, and it's coming up here also, is that, do you think that which of these positions or types of jobs do you think are more conducive to remote work, or if they're not conducive to remote work?
I think a lot of them are conducive to remote work. I mean, like, I literally have been remote since COVID started, and there's no plan for me to go back to the office. And so, that's the beauty of what we do. I mean, and you'll find actually now, with COVID and everything, now people are just kind of telling any employer who approaches them, I'm going to be at home, and they allow you to be. So, unless you're working on like the networking side where you have to go and look at servers and things like that, for the most part, all of it can be done remotely. I mean, there's WebEx, there's Zoom, there are other ways for you to communicate. And I have a lot of meetings, online meetings, but it's not important for you to be in the same place as someone in this field as much. Before, they used to think it did, and our government clients were like, "Oh, we need you to come and sit next to us and do this and the other thing." And since COVID, they realized you can do everything online. You can do everything on WebEx. You don't have to go in the office unless it's required. But a lot of them are all still at home, and no one's gone back yet.
Okay, thank you. A couple of questions about the best way to transfer from a particular specialty into security. And one person is asking about what's the best way for a software engineer to transfer to cybersecurity. We had a couple of questions last week about how does a database administrator transfer to cybersecurity. And one of the answers that was given was that it's important to make sure that you understand the cybersecurity implications of the technologies that you're working with. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, that answer is good. It's like, you have to have, understand the implications of what you're doing. But I think, you also need to investigate. There's so many, titles and, roles in cybersecurity that you kind of have to dig a little deeper to see, if what you want to get into exactly. So every company calls things different, like they may have the same job and they call it different things. And, you got to kind of learn the name of the role you want to get into. And then just, I think in that regard, then a certification helps you out. Because if you're already doing it, doing network and, you're a network admin, the likelihood that you're going to be hired in a cybersecurity company are great because you're already doing that. You just need to learn the terminology or learn how it's done in a security environment, but you can learn that on the job. It's a lot easier for you than someone else to do. So I would say just go ahead and apply. You have the background and just when you go to the interview, obviously you make it clear you've never worked in cybersecurity, but those are translatable skills. And so you're not so far off, you're not going to get a job, and you're not even, wouldn't be considered like a newbie in the position. You would have, you have experience doing, that kind of work. It's just not in cybersecurity.
That's a great answer. One of the other questions that related to that was, if I'm in HR or if I'm in accounting and finance, how can I, translate that into or parlay that into a cybersecurity management and policy type position?
Well, management and policy might be a little different if you're in HR. If you want to do HR in cybersecurity, you can. You're already an HR person. It goes back to the same answer as the last one. If you're trying to transition into something else, then you're definitely going to need to know what the job entails, and then you kind of figure out if you need to get a certification or if you need to take classes in order to, get the skill set that you need in order to do that. So, for instance, your program is a great one. They can take, do your program, and that would give them a boost, definitely a boost in getting the job that they want. Your university is highly rated, highly sought after. A lot of the people I see, their resumes are coming out of your university. So it's very, it's a boost, definitely, for them to do that, to get a certificate or a degree, from your university in order to pursue another job, change their careers.
Right, yeah, and like I said, I see a lot of questions coming in, how do you take one career path and parlay it into cybersecurity? Someone asking about how do you do that if you've been working in the field of compliance, somebody has an MBA and they want to transition to cybersecurity. I think some of the things that you talked about as far as the positions that you outlined in your presentation, the certification, the career paths that they need to take, you need to take a look at whether those certifications would be something that would make your field that you're focusing in more valuable as far as cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Let's see if I have any more questions. Talked about the entry salary. Oh, what is the value of having a mentor to be able to in the cybersecurity field?
I mean, having a mentor is always a good thing. I mean, it also depends on what your mentor, who your mentor is, and the type of advice they're going to give you. Obviously, if your mentor's in the cybersecurity field, that's really helpful. They can, help guide you or give you advice when you have, a question to ask. But it's not a make or break, situation. So if you don't have a mentor, don't stress out about it and worry that you're not going to get a job or things aren't going to go well for you. But if you can get a mentor, it's great to just have that added person who can, guide you along the way.
Yeah, someone was asking, how do you get a mentor? And, you attend things like this, and you look online and keep your nose to the grindstone as to what's happening in cybersecurity. And you'll
Right.
that there are many people who are out there. Of course, LinkedIn is there where you can find people who are engaged in cybersecurity, and you may find a connection with them with your organization or a school that you went to. So it's not hard to find, or if you just, if you take a look at some of the cybersecurity activities that are going on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I said I agree. Sorry.
Okay. I had a question about this webinar is recorded, and it will be on the website as soon as we get it transferred there. Someone asked about the presentation. Are you okay with sharing the presentation?
Sure.
Great. Oh, here's a good question. Another one that comes up a lot about top secret security clearances.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to discuss around that. The question that is here is that having a top secret clearance, that, could you ask for higher compensation because you already have one? But another topic that also comes up with clearances is that, if you don't have the experience to get a position that requires a clearance, you're not going to be able to get the clearance. It's just another cycle that some of these job seekers fall into. Do you have any thoughts about the whole clearance process and how you can get into the cybersecurity field with or without one?
Yeah, you can get into cybersecurity without a clearance. I mean, to get a job in, like the DoD or things like that that require top secret clearance, you have to have one. And a lot of times they're not going to apply for it for you. So it depends on the position you apply for. Some positions will say you must have the clearance before we hire you. Others will say you must be clearable, meaning like we're going to hire you, but you're going to have to go through clearance, and we're hoping you're going to be able to be cleared in order for you to continue working there. So it's not, top secret clearance is, it is highly sought after. The salaries are typically higher, but it's also very difficult to get because you got to get it while working for an agency. And then if you leave that agency, you only have a short amount of time to get your next job before that clearance goes away or becomes dormant. So you have to be working in order to maintain that clearance. And so if you've had it in the past, it's a good thing on your resume because it shows them that you can get it again, unless you've committed crimes, which we hope you haven't. But if it's there and they see you've had it once, the likelihood of you getting it again are very good. I don't even know if it takes as long the second time around, but you can definitely use that as a bargaining tool. And recruiters know when they see that, they know you're going to ask for higher. So, and the jobs are going to be higher anyway. So that's important. And that's not the only clearance you get. Like, you can get a public trust to do any of these jobs, and the agency will apply for that once you get hired. So don't feel, upset or stressed out that you don't have a clearance. Any of these positions that you get working for the federal government, you will have at least a public trust because they've got to do clearance on you to make sure that you're okay before you can start getting, classified documents, or just federal documents.
Yeah, there are lots of questions about, how do you get the clearance before the application process? You cannot get the clearance until you are hired by the governing organization.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you can apply for while you're in college.
Right.
The cost of the clearance is borne by the employer.
Yes.
So those are some of the questions that are coming in. Another one kind of related, does being in the military have any special cachet for getting a cybersecurity job?
For some organizations, yeah, because they're owned by veterans, or and even going after contracts, some of them stipulate that you should be hiring veterans. So it definitely helps. And veterans also have, I believe they have top secret clearance just by the fact that they're in the military. So you already have that. So yeah, it definitely is not going to hurt you at all. It only helps you.
Someone had another question about having supervisory or management experience. Does that help make up for the lack of cyber experience? And I think we talked a little bit about that when you were mentioning the professional experience and bundling that.
Yeah, it definitely helps, and it helps even more if you go get a PMP, because in order to manage any contract, the government requires that all project managers, program managers have a PMP. So even with experience, if you have a PMP, that helps you a lot.
Great. I see Daniel mentioned something that I didn't know, that our UMBC Career Quest is a start to seek a mentor. So you might want to check on that. At this point, I don't have any other questions that are coming in. I see somebody asking, is the PMP more influential than the Project Plus? CompTIA, that must be CompTIA Project Plus?
Yeah, I think CompTIA Project Plus, I'm not sure if that's a new thing or not, but I just know that the PMP is on the radar of the government right now. So Comp Project Plus may become popular or with them, but the requirement is for the PMP.
And that's for the program management professional.
Project management professional.
Project management. Yep. Sorry, somebody was asking what PMP was.
Okay.
One last question. What do you think about the Linux certifications?
All certifications are good. The more, the better. It just shows employers that you're willing to learn, that you are curious, and that you've seen something to completion. So, and it's something they can put on your resume, because you never know what the government is looking for. When you get a job, they may be like, I need a Linux, Linux certification. And most people are like, we don't have that. And if you do, there you go. You outshine the rest. So as many certifications as you can get, as diverse of amount of certifications you can get, the better for you, because that, sets you apart, because you never know what, companies are looking for.
I'm going to close this now at this point and ask if Tricia, if you want to have any closing remarks, and I see somebody wants you to be their mentor. If you want to share your email address.
Well, you can share my email with that person.
Okay. Did you have any closing remarks?
No, I just, my closing remark is to say, persevere, take your courses, get your degrees, get your certifications, and just get out there and apply. I mean, if I'm any indication, it doesn't hurt. I mean, who would have thought? Like, I had no idea that I was ever going to get into this business. And I just tried and tried and tried. Even if they say no, with every no, just ask the person why, and if they can give you a tip, but just continue, because, you will eventually get a job. And, because you guys are already at this university and getting your, pursuing your degrees, it's a no-brainer. You will find something. And so you just have to hang in there. And good luck.
Thank you very, very much. The only thing that I would add is that I totally agree with Tricia. It takes a lot of perseverance. You have, like I said, the NetLabs platform is available. That is not instructor-led, but the people who have been successful in using NetLabs and passing certification exams are the ones that, did the labs over and over again, did the exercises over and over again, tested over and over again. So you have to put a lot of effort into your own career. But if that's, we can conclude with that. And if you need more information about this webinar, just feel free to visit the link that I gave you for all of our October Cybersecurity Awareness Month activities. The audio and video will be there probably in a couple of weeks, but we will definitely be able to support you if you need information about the panelists, the presenters, or the presentations or the videos. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tricia, so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Very, very informative. Thank you and good afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.